Congressman Cory Mills is under fire over the past few months. Blaze News has uncovered a series of stories that raise serious questions about his past, his credibility, and whether he's been honest with his voters. So let us get you caught up on this story.
Look, we're just asking a lot of questions about some seriously strange things. First, there was a curious story about his marriage in 2014, due to the research of Blaze News' own Jill Savage. I've heard of her. We discovered that when Mills married his wife, Rana al-Saadi, the officiant of their wedding was a radical mufti named Muhammad al-Hanoudi at a radical Virginia mosque. It was called the Al-Qaeda Mosque because of well-documented ties to radical Islam. So this raised eyebrows not just because of the mosque reputation, but because Mills publicly identifies as a devout Christian. In a phone call with our own Peter Giedel, Mills acted like asking him who married him and what his religion was out of bounds. And that's all Peter asked. It was very strange, and it brought my interest to the story. He was up in arms and talking about suing us for asking basic questions like who married him and what religion he was. Anyhow, in response, he said he's always been Christian, but he did this to make it easier for his wife to travel safely back to Iraq.
So now Mills's girlfriend is Sarah Raviani. She's an Iranian-American activist. And after our story came out, she went to the Daily Mail that weekend, and she said that everything in the Blaze News article was entirely untrue because she prays with Mills privately. He attended her church with her family, so there's no reason to pretend around her. And that, okay, maybe, except for the fact that 5 of Mills's former colleagues told me and others here at Blaze News a different story. They said to me personally that they had told that Cory Mills, on a phone call with the one man that went on the record with us, he said, Cory Mills called me on the phone around 2013, 2014, and he said that he converted to Islam at the time of his wedding. Now, Mills denies that, but all the conflicting stories are piling up.
Yeah, it's worth noting that many of those people didn't go on the record about the fact that he had told them he converted back then because they were afraid of reprisal, which I also found very strange and maybe even troubling. Then there's his military background, and so Mills has repeatedly promoted himself as a decorated warfighter. He told people he's an Army Ranger. He said he was blown up twice during his time as a security contractor overseas. He put these things into his campaign ads. But this version of events, his version of events, has been disputed by veterans who served with him. Blaze News was told that Mills was never a Ranger, and we couldn't find any record of that, along with many other things, and that his claims about injuries aren't true. Many people came forward and they seemed very angry about the way he'd been presenting himself over time. He told Peter Giedel, our own Peter Giedel, that he got a concussion in the first explosion, and then he admitted he was not injured to Peter in the second explosion. And then he also called our report a hit piece, a report on a stolen and threatened legal action. We didn't even have a report out at the time, by the way, when he called us and rambled for 50 minutes. He was saying, whatever you're doing is a hit piece and threatened legal action from the start.
And yes, it actually gets crazier than this because now it actually gets even more concerning. In March, as part of the investigation, I contacted 2 people who were on a podcast questioning Mills's military record about stolen valor. So myself and others on our team, we began reaching out, right? We just wanted to see what is happening here. And their testimonies were the basis of the Stolen Valor article that MP just walked through, and we published it this week. So we've learned now that a Florida-based FBI agent has also contacted at least 3 of our sources that we put out in that Stolen Valor story. She was asking what they knew about Mills in the first one, in the Stolen Valor aspect of the story. And then she decided that she wanted to move on to Mills and his business dealings. Now, this agent even offered one person money to become a paid FBI informant. And that raises huge questions. So was this a sanctioned FBI investigation, or was someone inside the Bureau using federal resources to protect Cory Mills or intimidate our reporters?
We're going to get into this with Steve Baker in a minute, but we'll get the details out of the way first. Look, the FBI, in a very rare move, made a statement to Blaze News saying, "We are not aware of the conduct in question, but will review the matter immediately." This is May 16th. As always, any unethical behavior will be addressed swiftly and appropriately. And then the spokesperson added, senior leadership was made aware of the situation.
So that's a pretty good recap of what we've covered so far. So now let's bring in Blaze News investigative journalist Steve Baker. So Steve, you've had such an important role in this as well. So let's get right into this FBI story. So what did the sources think this FBI agent was up to?
Well, the sources originally thought that this FBI agent was bringing their dreams to fruition. And their dreams, of course, was anywhere from months to years of their own personal work in compiling and the evidentiary record of stolen valor of Cory Mills. And of course, these are individuals who, this is a very passionate issue for them. And of course, anybody that has honorably served in the military, it's a very passionate issue for them. And so as a result of that, they felt like that after going through various levels of trying to get this to the appropriate authorities, especially those who were speaking to the Federal Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE, in Florida, an actual, and by the way, I haven't even told you guys that yet today, but I've been in touch with FDLE now 2 or 3 times in the last couple of days, and they're actually assisting us, believe it or not. But that's a I've had too much to even keep you fully updated on. So after having given all of this information over to FDLE, because there is going to be going into law now, a brand new felony statute about stolen valor as a state law in Florida. So this has become very important to Florida and very important to these Florida residents as well. And of course, because this is a Florida-based congressman, the 7th District of Florida, Cory Mills. So after dealing with FDLE and handing all of that over, and then 2 or 3 months passed, or maybe 4 months, and then they were contacted by the FBI, an FBI agent by the name of Shay Tally-Bradley, who positioned herself as saying that this case about Cory Mills and his stolen valor had been referred to her. Now, she didn't say who it was referred to them by, but those individuals that we're talking about, our 3 main sources in this story, all assumed that this must be a referral from the FDLE up to the federal level, because there's a federal statute against stolen valor as well. So that they became even more excited. And they just began gushing out all the information they had, trying to send over documents. They had multiple phone calls with this agent. They had email exchanges, many text exchanges with this particular agent, until eventually, as they were getting closer to maybe giving everything that they wanted to, the agent started telling them to back off. And in fact, for a couple of our sources said, whoa, don't send me anything anymore. To another of our sources, she said, don't send me any documents to my official FBI email address. And then to yet another, or actually the same one I just referred to, she said, look, the FBI is really no longer interested in the stolen valor issue. What do you know about his business dealings? At this point, this confluence of kind of reticence and changing of her approach with these sources made our sources begin to doubt about whether this was even a real agent or not. Only one of those sources had ever met her in person and actually seen her badge. And in those circumstances, the agent approached our source solo. In other words, there was not a partner agent with her when she approached her. Actually showed up at her doorway, and then had a sit down at a local Starbucks for a couple of interviews, but never ever seemingly doing things the normal way that you would expect the FBI to do. In other words, show up with a partner. She never took notes. She never recorded the interviews. With any of our sources, she never recorded the interviews. And then, of course, as I began to look at this thing, after you guys asked me to come on and to look at the Cory Mills case at large, I just started zooming in on this one particular thing as it became more and more evident to me that this agent, and I don't know another or a better way to do it, but I had the impression, the feeling that she was operating rogue or off book, or certainly not sanctioned probably not a real open case file. There were just too many things that were wrong. We've learned much more since then. The most glaring of which is how rare it is for the FBI now, and especially in the last 7 or 8 years, to even do a stolen valor investigation at all, and extremely difficult to do one on a sitting U.S. congressman. That would require so many levels of approval. It would absolutely have to go to the absolute top of the Hoover building, to the 7th floor. This approval would be sitting on the director and the deputy director's desk. It would be sitting on the chief counsel's or general counsel's desk of the FBI, and it would also require additional approval from the Department of Justice and the Attorney General herself. So that is why that this began to be a very suspicious situation with this particular agent. And as we began to dig in and peel back the layers, it became more and more and more evident that she was in fact operating rogue.
Well, we're going to get into more, admittedly speculation about what the heck she was doing. But first, we should be noted as well, right? She did not contact all the people whose names she was given. She was gathering information from these sources about who might have information on Mills, but she didn't contact all those people.
No, this is one of the most suspicious aspects of this. If you are an agent who has been assigned to actually get to the bottom of the stolen valor question related to, in this case, Congressman Cory Mills of Florida, then once you are handed the names by these researchers, and these are people that that are concerned about our sources, they're concerned about this circumstance with stolen valor, but they weren't necessarily prime sources. And what that means is the actual men that were on the battlefield in these controversial or contested incidences in which it is alleged that the congressman either exaggerated or created his own acts of heroism and daring do out of whole cloth. And so the actual prime sources, which are many, so we're talking about 5 or 6, that the names that were with not Congressman then, but the soldier Cory Mills back then, over 20 years ago, those names were given to the agent, and the agent never contacted the prime sources. What it became very apparent to me, at least, is all that this particular agent was doing was gathering information about what they knew. And then when she switched and turned from stolen valor and said, really, what I want to know about now is, what do you know about his business dealings? Okay. So it sounded more like a fishing expedition and less of an investigation. And then, of course, as you know, we have sources. We have sources both currently within the FBI. We have sources that are whistleblowers that are famous for doing so. And then we have quite a large handful of FBI agents who have retired from the Bureau, who we have become acquainted with over the last several years through investigations into other issues and other matters. And we began to run these things by them and meet with them. And I was sitting with a retired FBI agent just yesterday in Tampa, Florida, who told me that the statement that Blaze Media received from the FBI is the most stunning and unprecedented statement he has ever seen in his over 20-year career with the FBI. Now he's retired. And then just today, I got a call from another retired FBI agent who read our story this afternoon, and he just kept saying, wow, oh, wow, just wow. And he kept repeating himself over and over again, just at that one paragraph that you led at the top of this segment here. Because as you know, the FBI, when they're in the middle of an investigation, whether investigating a congressman, whether they're investigating a journalist, whether they're investigating our sources, and legitimately so if they were, or whether they were investigating anything else, we know what their pat answer is. Sorry, we cannot comment on an ongoing investigation now.
So, Steve, this basically is this is very likely an off-the-books investigation by this FBI agent. They would know, or they wouldn't not know, if they were sicking her on a congressman, as you say. So, given that, one of the most disturbing aspects of this that we haven't talked about yet is that she offered one of these people to become an informant, a woman who runs the Cory Mills Watch site. They were obviously opposed to him politically in the primary a couple years ago. And she offered her to be an informant, and very disturbing that she said, I need you to spy on a lady, and there's only one woman whose name was given to her.
That's right. Keep your hand down, Jill.
Yeah, no. So I actually was talking to one of our sources on March 31st. And then this incident that MP just described of this woman meeting with the FBI agent happened on April 11th, just 12 days later. My source had told me, wow, you have so much information about this guy. You have stuff that I don't even know about. I think it would be good for you. Would you mind if I handed your contact information over to this FBI agent? And I said, absolutely. Whatever I can do to help, because there are so many things that don't add up in this story. So if I can be of help in any way, I'm happy to do it. And here we are, as you say, Steve, with some circumstantial evidence that person, that other female, might just be me.
Might just be you. As a matter of fact, what was very interesting about this is this particular source, again, this is a Florida-based source. So this is the only one that of our sources that the agent in question, Agent Tally-Bradley, was looking into, that actually lived in the Orlando area, where she is based out of the Orlando resident agency of the FBI, which also happens to be the district that Cory Mills represents in Florida. And so this particular source named in our story, she runs a website called CoryMillsWatch.com, has been compiling and gathering all of this information from numerous sources about the stolen valor issues and other issues as well related to Cory Mills. And so when she was approached by the agent and asked, first of all, for a personal sit-down meeting, she was ecstatic. She has no reason to lie or make this up. As I said earlier, it's like all of her work was coming to fruition. I mean, the FBI is wanting to have access to everything we've compiled and to what we're so passionate about here. And so she was excited to do so. And then in the second Starbucks meeting with Agent Tally-Bradley, she was, first of all, then switched and flipped from it being a stolen valor thing, being told by the agent, the stolen valor thing, there's not enough there, and the FBI is going to drop that, and we're going to move on to an inquiry about his business dealings. And it was during that second meeting on April 11th with our source that the agent actually asked her if she would be willing to be a confidential human source in this process of investigating, Cory Mills, she thought. And she actually agreed to it. She, exuberantly again agreed, said, yes, whatever it takes, whatever I need to do to bring Cory Mills down, I'm willing to do it. And then the agent said, well, then would you be willing to go undercover to do so? Because there's another lady that we would like for you to help us look at. And obviously, once again, I'll reiterate, there's no reason for our source to make this up, because she again agreed. Yes, I would be happy to do that. And she was told that she would be paid for this work as well.
Right.
And so, the April 11th meeting was over, and she never heard from the agent again.
Yeah, and as far as we know, only one woman's name was given to her by our sources, at least, and that person was named Jill Savage. So to be continued, but we've just buried the lead the entire time here, because we have not shown what you did today when you went and asked this agent what she knows. Let's watch this.
Sir.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing very well.
Very, very well. So, you're also an FBI agent, aren't you?
I don't know, sir.
Well, I would be curious as to what your thoughts are on the current Bongino Cash Patel administration.
I don't have any, sir. I appreciate it.
You don't have any comments on that whatsoever?
No, sir.
Are you aware that Blaze Media just came out with a story about you today and your relationship to Congressman Cory Mills?
I still have no idea what you're talking about, sir.
You have no idea what I'm talking about. Is it true that you tried to recruit a source as an undercover operative to investigate a Blaze Media journalist?
Sir, I still have no idea what you're talking about.
You have absolutely no idea what
But
I'm
I
talking
appreciate you coming, and I thank you so much.
about. You have
Well, no idea what you're talking about. Apparently, Steve, we got 60 seconds to wrap this up. Tell us about what that was like and what you're thinking.
Yeah, very quickly, she was actually the keynote speaker at a Memorial Day event here in Central Florida. And we showed up with a couple of friendlies that we have. And that's pretty much all I can say about who they are. And they assisted me in filming this. We were very respectful. We did not interrupt the meeting. We waited till long after it was over. And then we just followed her outside. And then we followed her path, as you saw, and were very respectful. We did not want to disrupt what obviously is a very special day for our veterans, and so we had no intention of doing that. But we felt like these questions needed to be asked, and you notice that I purposely asked a couple of questions in a manner that were not even asked in our story, just to see how she would respond. I was maybe a little bit more provocative in telling her that we were writing a story about her relationship with Cory Mills. Well, her relationship technically to Cory Mills is the fact that she has been investigating allegedly him with our sources all the way back to November of last year. That's her relationship with him that we can confirm 100%. I have a feeling that the relationship there goes much deeper.
I look forward to getting more of these answers because, Steve, every time we pull on one thread, things get much more interesting.